get started now. Tom, I was telling Lee and Chris I believe Kayla is going to call in tonight and be your visitor.
Good. What's on her mind?
She's just kind of curious, really, it seems like she's part of housing. And so as they start to brainstorm housing, one of the things that comes up is, you increase housing, you have traffic problems, you have parking problems, you have stuff that really ties into what you all are talking about and working on. So I think she just wants to listen more than anything, and just see how your discussion tonight could tie into their Friday talks.
Beautiful. Okay. So out of curiosity, when is their Friday meeting?
Their Friday meeting is at 5 o'clock.
Okay, great.
Karen, I'll just repeat one more time. I was just saying that I believe Kayla is going to call in just to be a listener.
Oh, okay. Great. We're seeing some of that, some crossover between the committees. That's fun.
So, Miranda, what do we need to get done tonight?
I would recommend really kind of digging into the goals and objectives with the goal in mind of having them really finalized by next Wednesday, if not tonight. Some people out there is done this week, but you really only have tonight and next week before we push it before the community.
Okay. Well, that's a Tashna calling.
She must not know.
That'll have to wait.
Well, I mean, my feeling is, pushing it to the community is really the critical part. I mean, I think if we could come up with even just 2 for each and then leave a bunch of blank spots, I would feel better about that than coming down from, a small handful of us saying, oh, here's our 5 goals. Do you like these or not? Rather than saying, here's our vision. Here's where we stand from 2020. What does the whole community feel needs to come next?
I think that's the best approach, because I think we're going to get a lot of feedback, and we should be ready for it, and we should leave enough maneuverability. Okay. So I guess we'll probably break it in 2, and since Ron's not here yet, maybe we can start with the government side of things. And Miranda, can you read back the vision for municipal government as our starting point, and then we'll work on goals?
I think she's muted.
Muted herself.
I have it, but I only have my notes. I don't know if I fully, so give me a moment.
Sure.
Fully integrate it into.
I mean, my goal for government would be that we go back to the idea of government partnering with the landowners who are going to be the most likely to redevelop in order to take care of utility issues that the Public Works Department is having, is always number 1 on their list. So, for example, First Street. Let's say First Street gets the block downtown gets redeveloped. It would be good for the government to work with the developer to when that construction gets done, to also fix all the utilities in First Street adjacent to where the construction's being done.
Okay, so I guess we have to move up a level of abstraction to goals, but essentially, do you think it's just a downtown issue, getting utilities to match development?
Well, I think wherever development is done, if government can work with the landowners. So right now, what's a tap fee cost? I think it's $30,000 or 20. What's the tap fee right now in Nederland?
Pretty sure it was 30.
I think it's about 30 combined, sewer and water.
I just wrote that check.
So my recommendation would be that if the developer, whoever's developing, fixes some of the utilities in front of where they're proposing to build, that the tap fee be lowered. In other words, spend some of that tap fee on actual construction of fixing the utilities in the area where where we're having issues with utilities, and that's pretty much all over town.
I presume, Karen, that that's going into a general fund right now, right?
No, we actually have a reserved account where we're putting all of our PIF funds along with other monies that have been reserved, but it is to be used for expanding capacity or doing major repair. I am a little curious about what you're talking about, Lee. Are you talking about just things like the water main breaks that take place because some of the infrastructure is so aging, or is there something else you're talking about?
Well, look at First Street, for example. So see, I'm not really in. I like the mission statement that we did, and that's all great, but I'm not a fluff guy. I want
I know, Lee.
actual progress. Okay, so First Street is a disaster. The utilities in First Street are all a disaster. When First Street was built, they built it up and they dumped a bunch of cars in there to kind of keep it built up, and then they put in the utilities. And the utilities are like anywhere from 100 years to 50 years. I mean, they're old, and so every single utility in that street is a disaster, whether it's water, gas, sanitary sewer. I mean, telephone is above ground for the most part. Electric is above ground for the most part. So, I mean, I think let's say that someone redevelops the downtown, which is likely to happen in the next 10 years, if not 15 or 20. I would try to work with whoever develops it, that they deal with the First Street utilities first, and then after those are done, that they do their development, so that we don't have to rip up First Street again after the new development is done.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
So, and the same thing goes for the utilities in the town square, you know, and I've been proposing a town square for a long time in front of the town hall, whether it's half of that parking lot or the whole thing. I mean, there's utilities that are in that area too that are just a disaster. And
Can I ask you, Lee, are you talking about just the water and sewer utilities, or are you also talking about the Excel infrastructure? I just want to be clear we know what exactly you're.
I'm doing buried utilities, so water, sewer, gas. So those are the three that are buried. Fiber optic, I'm not sure about fiber optic on First Street, but the overhead lines are telephone and power, as far as I'm aware.
Sure.
So, but I mean, I would expand that. Like when Salto was built, for example, it would have been a good time to rip up Schneider Street. I mean, and it wasn't done, and the equipment was all there to dig out the foundation for Salto. So, again, I'm trying to get a like use when we're doing something in an area. Why not take advantage of the equipment being there? Why not the town partner? Because this is an issue. I mean,
so what you're saying is leverage public-private partnerships at the time of development to maximize or to minimize the impact of updating our infrastructure.
Yes, exactly.
Capture that. Good.
Yes.
Lee, you've talked about First Street and Snyder. Are you talking about all of downtown, beyond downtown? Does it go further than that?
Well, I would start with First Street from all the way from basically the RTD site, you know, all the way to East Street, all the way to the Teen Center, and Second Street the same way. You know, I'm not sure. I did the surveying for the Second Street after for the sidewalks in there. I'm not sure if when that was built, all the utilities were replaced. It sure would have been a good time to do it. But I'm not sure that was done. I know that I counseled Sally Grahn to, you know, put all of her taps in before they redid Second Street, so that they wouldn't have to rip it up again.
Right.
And she did that, but I mean, I think that those two streets are definitely our downtown. I think
Right.
the stuff over on Lakeview and Big Springs are newer. Lakeview was, I think, 70s, 60s or 70s, and Big Springs was 70s, 80s when that went in. I think that was later. So I think those utilities are newer. Certainly after the downtown area is done, I would encourage, that we use monies, government monies to, to do individual streets in Old Town too, and individual streets like 3rd Street, 4th Street, 5th Street, whatever makes sense, wherever we're having the most problems,
Do we know where those places are right now, the hot spots?
Well, I imagine we could ask Public Works to give us a map of, or stick a little pin on their map of town where they've had to deal with water main breaks and where they think water's going into the sewer, and then get a general consensus of where our worst spots are. But my guess is that it's in Old Town and in Nederland itself, the town of Nederland itself, from the community center to the visitor center, and from basically from Coulson down to East Street.
Okay. Now, in terms of who I presume the town owns all these utilities, right? Or all the water, sewer, and gas. Is that true?
I think Excel owns the gas line, but
Water, sewer.
Okay.
Yeah, but water and sewer are obviously Ned.
And we invest a lot of money. Public Works spends a fair amount of money every year doing those updates and working on the I&I. And that's part of the reason, it's been a big part of the reason why overall volume going through the wastewater treatment plant has actually been decreasing yearly use, because we've been sealing up the pipes that are leaking underground, and the infiltration of groundwater into our distribution system. So
we got the equipment and the process to map all this. We're finding the leaks.
Yeah, Chris Pelletier and Public Works, they spend a lot of time doing that every single year. It's one of their big projects, and it pays off, because it's just, it's that many fewer gallons going in the wastewater treatment plant. That's less chemicals, that's less electricity, that's less work going, so.
Yeah, that totally.
That's a big part. But I like this idea of the public-private partnerships to sort of to maximize as a goal. I think that's a great municipal government goal, but it also bleeds into the economic development.
It totally does. It sets the stage.
Which is why this group has the two as our goals.
And you use the word leverage, which is your leverage is very high at the time you're redeveloping.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
And the town has the ability to. If tap fees are $30,000 or $35,000, the town has the ability to cut those fees or to adjust their fees to make it in the developer's best interest, to get a better utility serving their new development.
Right. And that's one of the potential tools. I want to put in the caveat that the tap fees are set where they are because we know that as large development happens, as the number of users of the wastewater treatment plant, for example, grows, we're going to have to expand that. And so those PIF fees are the down payment on the expansion. And so if we start cutting those, then that just means the entire town then it has to pay more. All the current users have to pay more.
Except for the fact that, like you say, the sanitary sewer volume has been going down, and so if a lot of these areas, and so we've actually used less of the wastewater plant with them finding more leaking into those clay pipes. So I think that there's a balance there. So I think we need to really work hard with developers that are trying to actually fix our utilities. I'm not saying we should lose money on it, but at the same time, I think we need to partner, and we need to find a good balance.
Lee, so I added that under your goals then to say Netherlands leverages public-private partnerships to improve infrastructure during community development. Does that
That's
capture?
perfect.
Okay,
That's perfect.
all right,
Bingo.
you have another goal, guys.
Yeah.
So I'd like to throw
Welcome.
in. Oh,
Welcome, Ron. Welcome, Kayla. Welcome,
Hi,
Kathleen.
everybody.
So since we're on the municipal government one, I just want to throw in one goal, and this is kind of an overarching one.
Yeah.
Because it's something I've been thinking about the whole time I've been involved, and I would like to see that in 2030, our goal should be that the town of Nederland and its finances are in better shape than they are today. I mean, this is something we've been working on, and we've gotten there. We are in actually really good shape right now, but it's something that after the 2013 floods, we saw, Lions had a big pot of money, and that's what saved the government, the town there, was that they were able to use that. We had gotten to a place where we were in good shape prior to the pandemic. And so it was a lot less stressful. So that's just like one of those goals, in terms of municipal government that I'd like to see is to continue that fiduciary responsibility and continue to improve the financial state of the town as a goal.
So I put Netherlands financial position continues to improve.
That's perfect.
Great.
But I mean, essentially, we need to. What does improve mean? Do you, at this point, you've been through a couple of cycles where we've been hit with unexpected things. What does an adequate cushion look like?
Right, and I mean that's something that is really up to each, the types of disasters we have and each type. Personally, I like we have the certain taper requirements we have to have, but I'm comfortable. My target has always kind of been in the 4 to 6 months of operating expenses that we could
So that's
bridge.
roughly $1 million to 1.3.
A little bit less than that, yeah.
Okay.
And it would be really good to leverage that money to get it to put, if we have money like that, to put it in some sort of short-term CD or something where we're actually making money on it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because banks, if you're depositing $400,000, they're going to give you a better rate of return. And so, and you can borrow against it too if you need the money right away. Yeah. So it would behoove us if we have money sitting around just in cash to actually talk to a financial planner about putting it in a 6-month or year-long CD.
Lee,
So,
when
Karen,
I used to
take...
work for the Scientific Cultural Facilities District, which is a 7-county tax district, and we had about $40 million a year. We work with the Colo Trust, and I believe that the town is now positioned in a place that we could open up some accounts with Colo Trust. Of course, this is a Board of Trustees decision. It's something that I was going to start talking to them about, but there are very safe ways for government entities to earn more interest. You're still not going to make, you're not going to make 10%, but better than the 0.02 or whatever. But the town is right.
-6.
Exactly. And the town's financial position has strengthened to such a place where I believe we're ready to do that. It hasn't always been that way, though.
Yeah, I think we take our goal and put invested properly, or invested prudently, or something like that.
Conservatively, but where we make more money than it just sitting in cash.
Yeah, cash is right now, unfortunately, with bond yields where they are, the difference between cash and liquid is pretty slim.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but change.
But I mean, it's a goal. It's not something that we might be able to do immediately, but I think it should be in the back of our minds that whatever we can use to leverage to create more money for fixing up our infrastructure, running the government, I think whenever we can make more interest, we should. Okay, we've talked about we talked at a core value about upgrading our digitalization of our records. We've talked about town infrastructure, especially around downtown. We talked about a sinking fund for disasters that do happen.
What are still on government? What are some other things we should be looking at? Is, for instance, our building stock appropriate for where we want to be in 30 years? I circulated something a little earlier today from Matashna that had some ideas. How are we in 10 years? What do we need in terms of built environment?
I think Atashna's suggestion of, it's something we've thought about for a while, but I think Atashna's suggestion of, getting a facility for the town police, whether that's a united one, as Atashna suggested, with town hall and all, or just something that's not in the B&F shopping center that we pay rent on every month.
Right.
A facility that is appropriate for the police and, owned by the town. I think that would be a great goal for municipal government.
Good.
Well, what about the community center? What about the community center?
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking?
I mean, the west wing of the community center is underutilized. My understanding was that there was asbestos or something in there that stopped it from being utilized. I mean, why can't we take some money and get the west, first of all, deal with the drainage problems, which we've known about for 20 years, and then also deal with the asbestos and make the west wing more.
And there is a community center master plan that lays out a bunch of different options for that west wing, from scraping it and building something new, all kinds of different things that deals with the drainage issues and all of that. And that could just be the goal, is to implement the community center master plan.
Yeah. I mean, that would be wonderful. And
that's something people
make it so that the police have a spot there. I mean,
yeah, because that's something that has already had a lot of community input, has been the result of a lot of community effort from the community center boards of the past to develop that. So keeping that together and keeping that as a goal, I think is appropriate.
So back to you, Miranda. Does that qualify as is that a third goal for this for municipal government?
Yeah.
Okay. Then let's do our best to read it back or create it. Essentially.
So Karen is wonderful and the one taking notes tonight for this group. So I will maybe pass it on to her to read back.
How'd you do that, Miranda?
So Karen is using the Google Drive. She's in there too.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So I just started, I was listening now. I was working on the other one, so I wasn't listening to this last one. So what I've added are Netherlands leverages public-private partnerships to improve infrastructure during community development. And then the last one I just added is Netherlands financial position is strong. 6 months of operating revenue are in reserves and savings are wisely invested.
Good, perfect. That's great. The newest
but I
one
couldn't
had
listen
to do with,
but I couldn't listen to what you guys were talking about while I was writing that.
Okay, the new one is actually work toward implementing the community center master plan to include a place for the police.
yeah, and I guess an adequate facilities for all town government required in 2030.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment? This is Kayla. I was on the Community Center Advisory Board for all of that. There was, in the plans, was before the fitness center and everything moved up there and all these things, we originally had planned on having the community center also be a hub, because it is a point of destination. It's not just let's walk into town hall while we're here. It was supposed to be a place large enough to archive all of the papers, have things from town hall up there where people have actual more room to work in, and have the police in that building, where you then could use the town hall building as a retail place to be creating tax revenue for the community. And same, the idea of having no rent for the police department would be I think a good goal for the town ultimately. I know a lot of people like having a walk-in police presence in the community right there, but I don't know if that's outweighed by the amount of money that you'd be saving on that. But it always was a particular goal to have all the municipal offices and the police up in the community center. And it's still, it can be, should be, would be, will be, hopefully, whatever. But thank you.
Kayla, having been with that group, with the goal we just put out, goal number 3, are we missing anything? Do we need to tighten it up a bit or get a little more specific?
For the community center?
Yeah.
Well, Karen, could you read that, what you actually have for that?
So it's not perfect, that's for sure. Let me make sure. Why am I, can you hear me? Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what I put is implement community center master plan to include space for police department and all town government in 2030.
I don't think we need all in there. I think we keep it flexible because it might be the planning department moves up there, or, you know, it may not be the entire thing.
I agree with that.
Clusters. Go ahead. So our main clusters are up on Ridge Road, downtown, and the community center, right? Those are our main assets.
Right.
Okay. Okay, I agree with what you say, Lee.
Wait, when you talk about main assets, are you talking about like town hall and the wastewater department and or wastewater building, the biosolids building, the water plant?
Yeah, I also say
the town shop.
The water treatment plant and things like that are, you know, they're not moving.
No.
Those
but like with the biosolids building, we added more office space there, for instance.
So and the shop and
Right. So I mean, what I've read through the plan is that the idea is to have a place for the administration. So basically town hall, the planning department, and the police department all to be in one space. Not that that needs to happen, but that's sort of been.
Could you say something like appropriate town government up to that building?
Yeah.
Instead of all, use the word appropriate?
Yeah, I like it.
Where does the word appropriate go in the statement?
Instead of all town government?
Okay, does that imply, it sounds like a dangling modifier, like we're implying some town government is inappropriate.
Couldn't we just say, which will include additional spaces for town government departments or something?
Yeah.
And even storage, I mean, because storage is a problem down in the town hall now.
Yeah.
Right, that was the archival part of it that we hope to have enough space.
Lee, we've been dealing with that quite well. We've got that biomass building now fixed up so that we're actually moved a bunch of the police stuff over there, and we're working on the stone garage as well. So we're kind of on the whole storage thing, just so you know. Yeah.
Awesome.
Ron, before we move, we got 3 for government. Before we move on, are we missing anything?
Well, I've got more than 3, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm just letting you know that's what it looks like.
Let's stop it.
We have enough there.
Ron, anything we forgot?
I don't know.
Okay, so that last one I wrote, implement community center master plan to include additional space for town government operations in 2030.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're getting there. Essentially, I think we've captured it. We should all take a look at it and see if we want to tune it before we call it final, but I think we made some progress on the first half, which is pretty good because it's 6:29.
Awesome.
So let's shift to economic development. And Lee, you've always got ideas. What are your first ones?
Well, my first idea is to modify codes that are outdated and that prevent
do you want to work on the economic development goals? Question mark?
Yeah.
That's where we just shifted.
Yeah, that's what's going on.
My first one is to get rid of outdated code, town code that stymies development that would be preferred.
Well, then how about we upgrade town code
Yeah.
to facilitate development or something like that, facilitate preferred development or something like that.
Modernized
Facilitate-
town.
Yeah, modernize is a good one.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay. And one thing, Lee, you've been consistent.
Yes. And then I think we need to really, I mean, if we're gonna modify code, I think instead of making it nebulous, we need to actually state something in the code. Like, let's say that the downtown block has a limit on of 20 feet high for a building. We need to actually put something that says we're going to add 10 feet to it, or add 12 feet to it, or add 16 feet to it, so that it's not nebulous.
Right. How is it? Is it that way now?
I believe it's more nebulous now. It's just
no, it's not nebulous. It's limited to 35 feet, and
Okay.
that is no inducement to development, whatever.
Right. Okay. Ron, what else do we need to? Is this I mean, we're at the goal level, which is not terribly prescriptive, but does this reflect, from your standpoint, is the guy most likely to do some major redevelopment, what you think the town needs to do?
Well, I agree with Lee. This enters into an area where you really need to take some look at some things and make some specific, exact recommendations. For example, we have a code that allows development by the number of units, but the number of units can be from 1 bedroom to 6 bedrooms or even more per acre.
Yeah.
This creates a situation that it promotes and induces the wrong kind of development. Because if you can have 5 units with 10 bedrooms, you then have 5 units and 50 people.
Yeah.
But if you have 5 units and only 1 bedrooms, if that's the limit per acre, you can only have 5 people. It doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't induce or encourage anyone to try and live with it, because they know they're going to be developing at, if it goes to the maximum what the code allows currently, something that's unwanted, unneeded, and unfunctional.
So I think now that we're on, we have modernized town code, and I think we have to essentially say it makes the rules clear for development and reflects the needs of the community.
You can say that it's still so nebulous you'll get nothing done.
Okay.
Or I think we need to say, instead, we need to say modernize the town code, and then partner with landowners to develop specific non-nebulous restrictions. You know, so in other words, so that we know exactly what we're getting, and instead of having it all open to interpretation and everybody in town fighting each other over the interpretation of it.
Well, I think we're a small town, and I think in terms of open government and open and visual things, I think we need to say, if you have a project that's over maybe 20,000 square feet, 30,000 square feet, the final approval of it could come from a vote of the entire town's registered voters. Then, if it's rejected, tough luck. You know the town doesn't want it. But you have a small number of people who've been involved in town government for years and years, and they don't want development. Period. So that's where everything
I totally
hangs
agree
up.
with that. I totally agree with that. And what happens instead? There's a very vocal minority in Nederland that wants nothing done. Nothing.
But Ron, I mean, if I were in your shoes and we're looking to do development, are you more likely to get a favorable outcome from a general vote than from getting adjudication on whether the development is following the rules or not.
Well, that's a risk I'd be quite willing to take, because I think if you explain what you want, if you talk to the people, if you give exposure and adequate time for everybody to understand it and see if it actually is something that would really benefit the town and really be worth it for the town to do it, I think they'd vote for it. If it looks like it's something that's just a money-making cash cow for the developer, period, it probably wouldn't pass.
Okay. What do you consider to be significant? 200,000 square feet, or what's the threshold?
Well, you know what my square foot is, and I don't think that, but who knows? Somebody may break it up. I've sold big packages that I've assembled, and people broke them back up, which amazed me that they do that. So I think we have 40 by 100-foot lots, and
Right.
in most cases in the downtown area, you have a hodgepodge of small tracts, big tracts, irregular lots, half deeded lots to somebody else. They're a mess. And
Right.
for the downtown to be redeveloped, all of those lot lines would probably have to be dissolved, and you'd have one fairly rectangular piece of property. And that is well over. Lee, I mean, you're the surveyor.
I could give you the exact number, but I don't have that map in front of me. But I think we need to put the number smaller than that, because there's other smaller pieces that are going to come up that it would be smart to look at this also for smaller pieces. But definitely
our economic goals have to be more than just the block downtown.
Yeah.
I agree with that, but I'm just saying this is one of them. And I think you have a significant investment in the downtown, and I think it's highly underutilized. And I think at this point, it doesn't create much value or income for the town. And I think it could probably be, by development, the town would be better off by a factor of 10.
Yeah.
And I think that might lead to a goal that could be tied with an actual metric, is going back to the talk we got from Joe Minicozzi several years ago, that our downtown area is severely underperforming in sales tax revenue. So what about a goal of by 2030, the downtown area will be performing at and we'd have to look up and determine what the numbers are, but something equivalent to other, mountain towns that have thriving downtown areas.
Well, Mr. Minicozzi volunteered to do an in-depth study of what your potential could be. And I would say maybe a goal is to have him come and display and demonstrate that to those who don't believe or never had an opportunity to hear what he said. He's one of the country's leading experts in this kind of thing. I don't know, maybe the goal would be to ascertain what the potential is, and then adequately rezone or restructure the codes to allow that to happen. How's that?
I like that a lot.
Yeah. And I think that instead of modernize the code, make it change the code.
Or update.
Well, I can pretty much guarantee if that isn't done, there won't be any redevelopment.
We need to change the code.
Yeah. Do we as a group, should we be looking at under this sector? We're talking about commercial pretty much exclusively now. Do we need to address residential development?
Sure, you need to look.
This is economic development.
Yes, but residential is a component of that. And
I think with respect to residential, again, town code comes into it again, where I think we need to make it easier, especially in the downtown area, for people to build ADUs with pitched roofs. Because again, we don't have enough small, low-income housing in Nederland. And if you're building a 2-car garage in downtown Ned, and you can put something above it that allows somebody to live there that is only making $10 or $15 an hour, then that's gonna go right into the home, the residential kind of thing also.
Okay. So how do we make it or put it into the context of a goal?
Change code to encourage um, ADUs in certain areas of town, in certain higher density areas of town.
Well, I think we have change and update code, and that's a sub goal because there's multiple different pieces of the change and update code that we want. So one piece would be updating to provide ADU accessibility or ability, and another piece,
an
another
ADU
piece,
and
the other things.
an
Ron, you were
ADU in a
saying?
proposed apartment complex doesn't work. I would just say increase the density and to where the housing needs study way back when it was done hit the nail right on the head. And I
Okay.
previously spoke to the density problem the way it's defined right now in the code by unit instead of by square foot.
Right.
Okay. Then I think you're onto something, Ron. By unit versus square foot.
Other way around.
Because of well, we've had unintended consequences by focusing on one instead of the other.
Can I make a comment?
Please.
I have always said that all of our groups need to work ultimately with the same goal in mind, but understanding that when you talk about increasing the density of people in town, the people that are worried about too much traffic are going to bitch about that. If you don't have people living in this community, you won't support those, quote, businesses that you're hoping to attract into the greater Nederland area to produce the income that you want for the town so you can do all the projects you want to do in town. And, you know, I mean, everything is, we're like a little Rubik's Cube. And I appreciate Ron, what he's trying to do. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I am going to for just 1 second and say, I hope you also keep in mind when you're doing this that these code changes, what the municipality is going to do or wants to do, how will that work with and how will it add to or be restrained by whatever you, Chris, are going to come up with if you choose to partner again with Boulder County for growing the town. I mean, Nederland's only going to be able to grow a certain amount. You're only going to build a certain amount with what properties you have in town if you don't annex. So, you know, I'm still hoping that that comes up in certain conversations now and again, and it will have an effect on, it's like a ripple. Whatever pebble you throw in the pond, it's going to ripple to all the other groups that are working on their portion of the 2030 envisioning. And so
You're right.
Keeping that in mind, how will that be, you know, can these things be adjusted so that you are encouraging, can there be something said about encouraging the maximum growth applicable to the town based on whatever X is? And X could be annexation, or it could be code changing, or it could be both, or it could be whatever. So I hope that's at least in the back of everybody's mind. So
I have a comment here. I kind of like math. And the town has around 110 lots left. And the PIFs that those would generate, if you could get everybody to build on them, and you can't, because some of those lots are owned by people who don't want anybody to build on the lot. So they've bought the lot next door to themselves to make sure nobody builds on it.
sure.
So that probably cuts the number of really available lots to around 100, between 90 and 110. So like everywhere else in the world, as population increases and puts pressure on all of the infrastructure, the only way is to go up. And if you don't increase the height limit or the density, or provide systems that function a lot better than they do now, and for example, is traffic circulation, parking, all those sort of things that function together. Kayla's right, it's a Rubik's Cube. But I think if you come up with a solution and the town could vote on it, then the people who are always screaming, and the screamers seem to be the minority, but they win the lottery every time. So I'm in favor of letting the town vote on a given sort of proposal. Because if it really benefits the town, I believe the electorate can see it. And if it doesn't, they won't approve it. So that's where I stand on this thing. I don't know how you put it in the way of goals, but I really feel that unless you have some real specifics in your goals, nothing will get done.
I agree.
Kayla, or I guess I address this back to Miranda. Of all the subcommittees we've got, where does things like town boundaries and annexation fit? Whose purview is that?
Well, I know housing, there is a member of the housing committee who's interested in talking about it, but kind of from the purview of requiring, some sort of agreement that would have a percentage of the annex property be affordable housing. And so I think it could be a combination of this committee and housing. Not everyone wants to annex their property, though, to provide housing. So I think that needs to be considered, that they may just want to, pay into town property taxes and not necessarily develop their property.
Both Phil and I are on the housing committee, and there's tremendous diversity on that committee, and that is very difficult for us to come to any real consensus. We're trying, just like everybody else, and everybody's civil in terms of how they do it, but the personal objectives of each individual are so far apart that it's very hard to get the housing committee to come to a goal that I think we can all agree on.
Okay. Chris, how often do issues like this come up, or is it once a quarter that it comes in front of the board?
What kind of issues? Like annexation issues?
Yeah.
Very rarely. The only reason really anyone's been talking about over the last couple of years was because we set out our IGA, our intergovernmental agreement with Boulder County, expires in, almost exactly 1 year, March 22nd of next year. And that agreement, as it is currently written, does not allow for annexation.
Okay.
And so we started the process of updating it a couple of years ago. It got derailed by COVID and by turnovers of the county commissioners and by our own board. And so it is kind of back to square one right now as to whether or not, if it is not renegotiated or changed, whatever, if there's not a new IGA signed, then in March of next year, we go back to the state rules, which allows any adjacent property owner to petition to the town for annexation. It does not involve a vote of the town's populace. It doesn't involve any of those kinds of things.
Just the adjacent property owner.
They could just say, hey, we want to be a part of your town. And then the town decides, goes through a process and decides if they want it or not. The town being town government. So that's the only reason people have really been discussing annexation over the last couple of years. It comes up every, I don't know, maybe decade. I remember back in 07 or 08, there was a proposal for a large new subdivision to be annexed into town, north of town, north of Mud Lake, like the Sherwood Gulch area. There was a proposal for, I think, a couple hundred homes in that area. But that didn't go very far. And it didn't even get to the point of trying to address how it would work with the IGA. So it comes up rarely, but it seems to be coming up a little more frequently now, simply because the attention is there and because of the growth pressures along the Front Range.
And there are people who have been working on these things for 9 years too.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Brings up a point, going back to government.
My own feeling is that we should let the IGA expire, because we shouldn't let the county of Boulder dictate what we do or don't want to annex. Who's in charge of the town? Are we in charge of the town, or is county of Boulder?
If we do, what are the implications of letting it lapse?
Well, the other flip side is we have a very good relationship with the county, and we want to maintain a good relationship because they do our nighttime policing. We work very well with them, so we don't. We want to work with them without antagonizing them. But yeah, we should have better say, and that's why the IGA we were renegotiating last year gave the town the control over everything adjacent to the town, and the county was okay with that. They liked that idea. They were fine with that. We got a lot of blowback from the community on that, and
from a minority of the community.
brings up a point going back to government for a bit. Do we want to insert something about a successful conclusion of the IGA before it expires? In a way that
that's another goal. I think that would be a
we
good.
could. I mean, the only thing is that happens in 2022. And this is Envision 2030. So
I almost want to say something to the effect that we conclude a new IGA in 2022 that reflects our needs through 2030.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the county does not want annexation, so that's one of the reasons the IGA was signed in the first place. So I don't think you're going to achieve something by having another IGA that prevents annexation.
And we could say that puts the needs of the town first instead of the needs of Boulder County first.
Yeah. Can we do that, Brandon or Karen?
Of course.
My question is, do you want to be that specific, or do you just want to say something along the lines of intergovernmental agreements between the town and county will meet the needs of the town, or however? I'm not saying it very elegantly, but don't just focus on, because we have something like 24 IGAs or something, do we want to just put it that way? Like any agreements between the town's needs are in the forefront of any agreement with the county, or something along that line. It's not very elegant, but keeps it open.
It's really important to get the thing concluded, and it's really important that it reflect the needs looking way out.
So
I don't understand what you're talking about in terms of. Sorry.
You've got about 8 minutes left, and I just wanted to let you know that from a timekeeping standpoint, and just so you guys can talk about if you're going to be going in between your meetings and sort of going on to the Google Docs and massaging this and putting comments and suggesting edits.
Yeah, that's our plan.
Or if you're going to meet. Yeah, okay. Cool.
Ron, you were saying something?
I was, but I'll pass because of the time limit. But I guess I want to inject one thing. I would like to see a study done, a goal that we have a study done by preferably Joe Minicozy that demonstrates to the individual town members and the people what redevelopment in the downtown could do for the town. That's a goal. I mean, because it didn't happen. His fees have doubled in the last couple of years. And I think this is something where maybe the DDA and the town could partner to pay for it and actually have an independent third party assess what could be done, because me saying so doesn't carry any weight at all.
It does with me.
It does with me too.
Well, you both have one vote. Thank you.
Me too, but I can't vote.
I'll get my wife.
Ron, you have a lot more power than you might realize.
Well, I think again, this is where we have to, and I think the town as a whole, if they were had a demonstration by Mr. Minicozy, would probably vote for something that had already maybe gone through the planning board and the BOT, but the final decision could rest with the voters. And maybe the voters would overrule the BOT and the planning board, or maybe they would agree. But I think it's an option that should be a goal. Thank you.
So to basically work with somebody who's an expert at this, talking that can talk to us intelligently about what downtown development can do for the town. And I'm looking at what did we employ Joe Minicozy before?
I think downtown Colorado paid him some fee, I think $5,000 or $10,000 to come up and give a demonstration. And I'm not sure it was in town or it was also for the county. I think the Boulder Board of Realtors had something to do with it. I can't really remember, but so I can't really answer that question adequately. But he really did invite a lot of. Go ahead.
His name sounded familiar. Is he the guy that redeveloped Asheville, North Carolina?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, he is good. But I think, yeah, you said it, you said it first of all, very specifically, and then second of all, less Minicozy specific. But I think your suggestion is good. It's something that we need to, we can do so much in a vision statement, but it really helps to make it tangible with a guy that's done it across a whole bunch of downtowns before and made them really nice.
Yeah, and I like the edits Miranda just did, because I don't want us to tie a goal to a single person or a single project.
Right. That's what I'm saying. We
saying, an expert like Joe Minicozy.
Yeah.
You know, some
Don't
study
say
to
like Minicozy, because that rules him out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, or yeah.
Just say an expert in their field.
If you say a consultant like Joe Minicozy, you've just ruled out Joe Minicozy.
Good point. Good point.
Or just say an expert in their field.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Is it a planning expert?
Yeah.
A planning downtown development expert.
Yeah, he's really good at redeveloping commercial real estate in downtowns.
Someone who can demonstrate the financial aspects of redevelopment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's done some phenomenal committees in North Carolina.
Like Dana Crawford is here in Denver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, did we get something accomplished tonight?
Seems like it.
Okay.
I think we did.
We have still on development. Is there anything else we want to touch on in the 3 minutes we got left?
I think my only ask would be over the next week, you go back and these X's, you fill those in with something.
I guarantee it.
We should go back in and work on massaging the language of these, all of us together over the next week.
Yeah.
Before it's presented back to the big group.
Yeah.
I'm available for phone calls anytime at my office or my cell.
Good.
Tom, could I get your phone number?
Mine is 303-517-5077.
My pen ran out of ink. I'm going to ask you to do it again. Okay.
Ron, I can also text it to you, Tom, if you're okay with that. I can send it. Might be
perfectly
easier.
fine. Please do. Yeah.
And then the last thing I'd like to say about the downtown, we really need to also think about whether or not I heard Chris say in the last meeting he'd like to see a walking mall for First Street, and I thought to myself, gosh, that's really a cool idea. So we need to decide. I think we need to try to get specific about whether or not we would want some sort of a walking pedestrian mall on First Street and buildings up to the lot line the way they are now, or whether we want it to be more traffic oriented for parking and buildings pulled back from the right of way.
That's longer than a 2-minute. You're right. It's longer than a 2-minute discussion, but I think you're right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then following your comments last time, I went over and found that bridge. The pedestrian bridge. The passenger bridge. That was remarkably solid.
Yeah. Anyway.
Are we complete for tonight?
You did include a walkable downtown in one of your goals.
We did.
Yeah.
Good.
Just so you, yeah.
Mission accomplished?
Mission accomplished.
Well-run meeting.
Okay. Then I give you back 1 minute.
And I think this is the most visitors we've had.
It's great. Keep them coming.
When is
Good
the
night,
first?
everybody.
Just real quick, Miranda. When does or Karen? When does the first chance the public gets to really weigh in on this?
So we're going to start with the Board of Trustees on the 6th of April, and then the following week is when we will start the charrettes.
Charrettes, okay. Cool. Sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, visitors.
Thank you.
Team. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye, Kayla.
Bye.
It's good to see you. Bye, Ron.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Tom. Bye, Lee.